What does it mean to be authentic? What does authenticity mean, actually? It's pretty vague, and it's hard to really define what being authentic really means because everyone has a different definition of what authenticity is when it comes to self-expression. So I would just like to dive deeper into what I think authenticity is actually about when it comes to self-expression, and what does it actually mean to be the most authentic version of yourself, to be authentic. So it's kind of difficult because since we were born, we've been socially conditioned by social norms, by our family and friends to behave a certain way and act a certain way depending on who we're with, what the environment is, what the social setting is. So we have different versions of ourselves. We have different facets. We have different filters. We have different social filters that we use depending on the situation and which version of ourselves is most appropriate to that situation. And naturally, we modify the way we express ourselves in each different situation. So does that mean we're being inauthentic? Does that mean we've been conditioned to be fake, or are we hiding our authenticity when we change how we behave depending on the situation? Let's say, for example, you have strict parents at home that don't let you talk too loudly, that don't want you to be so hyper or expressive or too crazy in the house, but you feel like being expressive and you feel like talking loudly, you feel like being excited and like active. And those strict parents of yours are trying to get you to calm down. And so you end up like making yourself calmer, quieter, smaller around your parents so that they don't get angry, or so that, there can be peace and quiet in the home, and so you can be more accepted by your parents. So does this mean that this quieter, calmer version of you is inauthentic? I think it depends on how you put on that filter. I think we can always be authentic, even if the people around us want a specific version of ourselves. But social conditioning and certain necessities, certain behaviors that are required due to people not accepting certain versions of you can dampen your authenticity, in the sense that you might be too scared to express yourself in certain ways that you feel called to. So if you used to be a kid or a teenager who was expressive, who overshared, who was always excited about talking and like just overshares and trusts everybody, at a certain point, either when as a teenager or as an adult, you realize that oversharing can be used against you, or that nobody really cares about all the things you're talking about. And that kind of happened to me as well. I used to overshare with people who didn't really care. They were either not that close, or they used it against me. So does that mean that that version of ourselves is the authentic version, and that like life and the reactions we get from people make us hide our authentic selves? When you realize that there are certain aspects and versions of yourself that you can no longer express readily to other people due to traumas, due to fear of not being accepted, or just because you realize people don't care to know about that aspect of you, once you start changing your behaviors to be more socially accepted, to be more well-liked, to fit better into social situations, how do we know what is authentic to us? How do we know what authenticity means? Is there only one way to be authentic? If we're hiding a certain version of ourselves from others, does that mean we're being inauthentic? And I don't think authenticity can only be defined as one version of yourself, right? We're multifaceted beings. We have different versions of ourselves for different moods, energies, situations, people, and those versions of ourselves are either versions that naturally were created, that are a part of our essence, our core being, or there are versions of ourselves that we had to create to fit certain social situations. And I think all those different versions of ourselves are a part of our authenticity, are part of us, and we do need to change how we come across depending on the social situation. We need to be socially flexible and adapt to different situations, different relationships, different settings. And I don't think we should be showing a certain aspect of ourselves that we deem to be authentic just for the sake of being authentic. Like, there's a time and a place for every version of ourselves. And we do need to meet people where they are at. Some people might be too tired or on edge to create a safe space for certain versions of us. So if someone doesn't have the mental, physical, emotional capacity to welcome a certain aspect of yourself, a certain version of yourself that you wish to express, you have to adjust how you come across while still maintaining your essence, while still maintaining your core being, but you just have to, adjust accordingly. If there are any protective layers that you have created out of fear, out of trauma, out of necessity, then being more authentic could involve learning to trust yourself, and learning that even if something scary happens due to expressing yourself, that you trust yourself enough to survive it, get through it, move through it. So trusting yourself and creating a safe space for yourself to process emotions, be vulnerable, could allow you to sort of thin out those protective layers that you had to create to protect yourself. So that could be a way to be more authentic. So I don't think you need to completely get rid of all the protective layers and social conditioning that has, been created on top of your core being, your authenticity, your authentic self. But if we can be aware of those layers that we've created or that society created for us, then we can slowly start to allow some aspects of our essence, our core being, to seep through those layers without removing them completely, but just making them a bit more translucent so that certain aspects that we want to show to others but might be too scared to, we can allow our essence to seep through our protective layers, our social conditioning. So we can learn to be a version of ourselves that we wish to be. If we have a version of ourselves that we feel is the most authentic, that we wish to show, we can balance our authentic version of ourselves with the social filters and social conditioning that is necessary for certain social situations. So we can still keep ourselves safe and we can still come across as socially acceptable while still showing the aspect of ourselves that we want to share with the world, so that certain versions of ourselves that we're too afraid to show can still be seen and heard through those social filters, through the social conditioning. On another note, being authentic doesn't really correlate with being real. Like, you don't have to express every emotion, desire, and thought that passes through your mind at any specific moment when you're interacting with others. Just because you have a feeling or a thought or an urge to say something in the moment doesn't mean you have to blurt it out without any filters. If you wish to be more authentic, it requires living in alignment with your values, as well as living in alignment with your essence, your soul, and what your soul desires. First of all, you have to know what your values are. You have to be very self-aware and in tune with how each value feels in you. Like, does this value truly resonate with you, or is this a value that you think you should value? If that makes sense. Like, is this a socially acceptable value that I think I should have, or do I actually value this? So, just for an example, I don't value hard work in the sense that I don't value being a workaholic or like spending a majority of my life working. Like, that seems to be a value that is socially acceptable, but just because hustle culture and working hard is valued in society, that doesn't mean I should try to like force myself to value that thing. Now, I do value working and being valuable, but that's not the same thing as like torturing yourself and like working 50 hours a week. So what I value is a balanced life, like a life where I can provide value to the world, but also a life where I can enjoy myself, where I can enjoy life and have the freedom to do the things that I want to do other than work. So, an example of a value that actually resonates with me would be respect. I really value respecting others and myself, and I really value others respecting me and everyone else. Now, I can't say that I've been the best at respecting myself. There are many times where I've betrayed myself, where I've sabotaged myself and really treated myself in a way that I didn't want to be treated. And because I value respect, that disrespect I had towards myself, the self-betrayal, the self-sabotage, really hurt me, really affected me, and it really affected my mental health. I was not being authentic to myself. Like, I was not being authentic, and I was not living in alignment with what I actually valued. A step towards authenticity would be realizing that I do value respect, and if I live in alignment with respect, and respect myself first and foremost, then I will be a happier person. I will be more authentically me. And the second aspect of authenticity, which is to live in alignment with your essence, your soul's desires, your soul's yearnings, your soul's excitement. You can feel when you're not being authentic to your essence. You can feel when you're not listening to your heart, your soul, your deepest desires, your soul's excitement, and that affects your mental health. And this is also something I've experienced for the last decade. I was basically too scared. I wasn't listening to what my soul wanted. I wasn't listening to my heart. I wasn't actively living in alignment with my soul's desires. And it really affects your self-esteem when you can't act on what you truly desire. And you end up being inauthentic. You end up not listening to yourself. You end up not listening to your soul, your essence, and what it's trying to tell you over and over again. Other than aligning yourself with your values, what you truly value, the other aspect of being more authentic requires you to actually listen and act on what your soul desires, what your essence, what your core desires are, what you yearn to do. And, those are your dreams, your aspirations, the things you wish you could do if you had all the money in the world. It's everything you wish you could do if fear or failure weren't issues. Once you act on one desire your soul has, that doesn't mean you're not going to have a different desire, or that you will only desire a certain number of things. Like, we are beings that grow and change. We are beings that have ever-evolving desires and yearnings. So being authentic is not a constant. It's not one version of yourself. It's not just one thing. Your authenticity is evolving. Your authenticity changes over time. Even your values could change over time. So living in alignment with your values doesn't mean your values can't change. When you're growing and learning and evolving, you can realize that the values you have lived by so far are no longer the values you have. And once you realize your values changed, living in alignment with those new values means that you're continuing to be authentic. It just means that your authenticity as a whole involves change, involves evolution, involves growth. And that's just how it is. You can maintain your authenticity while you grow and change and evolve by letting your essence shine through, by listening to your soul's desires every day, every moment, as much as possible, and by living in alignment with your values, regardless of how often those values change. As long as you are aware of what your true values are, what you truly value, regardless of what values society tries to impose upon you. So don't worry. As long as you feel that you are living true to yourself, you are being authentic. And if your social filters feel too suffocating, if you feel like a certain version of yourself that is necessary is too fake, is too inauthentic, you can find a way to let your authenticity, to let certain aspects of yourself seep through that social filter, to seep through that necessary version of yourself. Like, you can speak your mind while still being eloquent. You can still speak your mind while being socially acceptable. You can still voice your opinions, your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, your urges, while still maintaining the social filter, the necessary composure. You can still share those aspects of you while still maintaining the version of yourself that is required for that setting. In the end, being your most authentic self also comes down to how you feel. Like, in some aspect, authenticity is a feeling of being in alignment with what you want and what you value, or not being in alignment with those things. It's either a feeling of satisfaction and emotional fulfillment, and in cases where you're feeling inauthentic, it's feelings of shame and disappointment and self-betrayal and self-sabotage. So if you're feeling depressed, anxious, like you're always betraying yourself, that you're disrespecting yourself, that you're sabotaging yourself, then that's an indication that you're not living in alignment with your true values, and you're not living in alignment with your essence, your soul's desires, which means you are not living authentically. But on the other hand, if you're respecting your desires, if you're living in alignment with your true values, and you're living in alignment with your soul's desires, then you feel authentic, you feel satisfied, you feel proud of yourself, you feel emotionally fulfilled, you feel a sense of relief. That's what authenticity feels like. A sense of contentment. I think that is what happiness is. You're no longer hiding yourself, you're no longer keeping yourself small and stuck. I think that's what being authentic boils down to. And this is just my personal opinion. Your definition of authenticity might be slightly different than mine, and that's totally fine. But I think authenticity is used way too much these days, and we end up confusing authenticity with realness or consistency or unlearning social conditioning and social filters. So yeah, that's my take on authenticity. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching and listening to me. Thank you for being here. If you liked my video, please consider checking out my other videos, and please consider subscribing. I would be so grateful for that. I hope you have a lovely week. Please take care of yourself. Please be kind to yourself. And please be kind to others. I hope this inspired you to search within yourself, to self-reflect on what authenticity means for you, on what values you truly hold, what values truly resonate with you, and to just listen to your soul, listen to your heart, listen to what you truly desire, and maybe have the courage to act in alignment with those values and desires that you have. So, thank you so much. I'll see you later. Bye.